Welcome back to Out of the Blue, the podcast, where real people share real stories of resilience, transformation, and the human spirit rising through adversity. I'm your host, Vernon West, joined by my daughter and co host, Jackie West, our social media and marketing manager, a professional musician, and a Reiki healer. Our guest today has spent her life standing in the gap for others. Judy J.J. Jackson Winston is an award-winning author, licensed social worker, and attorney whose work has changed lives both in and out of the courtroom. For nearly 2 decades, she served as client rights officer for the Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Services Board, making sure the most vulnerable in her community were heard, protected, and treated with dignity. She is the author of 3 novels and a behavioral health workbook, blending her deep professional expertise with the art of storytelling to raise awareness and spark change. And as someone living with sickle cell disease, JJ has turned her personal journey into a mission, educating and empowering communities to take charge of their health. Today, as a post-decree magistrate, she continues to lead with courage, compassion, and an unshakable belief that behavioral health care is health care too. This is going to be a powerful and inspiring conversation. JJ Winston, welcome to Out of the Blue, the podcast.
Thank you, Vernon and Jackie, for having me. And it's just an honor to be here.
It is our honor, our distinct pleasure and honor. So, as we always begin our Out of the Blue episodes with at the beginning, as close to the beginning as we get. We don't have to talk about I was born, and you don't have to go back far, but we'll go back to that first event maybe that sparked your life journey. The thing that maybe happened out of the blue that would have been the thing that changed you fundamentally in a sense that your whole world just kind of focused on that point. So let's start with your question. The question is there. It is. What is your answer?
Here's the answer, Vernon.
Okay.
When I was 15, I was in high school, and it was a peer that I went to school with. The two of us had a really bad argument. But previous to this argument, I wanted to be a computer engineer. Um, I'm a little bit older. I'm not as young as I might hopefully look, but we knew when I was a young person that computers, they weren't 100% there yet, but they were coming. So I wanted to, work in that field. And that was my goal. But then I had this argument with this peer that I'm telling you about. And it was a really bad argument. We weren't the best of friends anyway, so we didn't speak for like 4 months. She came to me and apologized and told me she was sorry for our argument and asked me, could we be friends? And I told her yes. And the very next day, she committed suicide.
Oh, God.
And this whole event really, really fundamentally changed me. Um, I no longer wanted to be a computer engineer. I decided I was going to dedicate my life to children and to ensuring that no young people felt like she must have obviously felt to take her own life. And I was just so appalled. Like we had people come in, like the social workers and therapists and counselors, and they explained to us that she had already made this decision. We learned this because she had started giving away all of her items and her belongings and making amends with people she had an issue with. And all of these were signs, but we were young people and we didn't know. And so therefore I decided to dedicate my life to young people and then to just people. And so this whole event changed me.
Boy, oh boy.
Wow.
If that isn't something, man, that's very powerful. But you know what I hear really resonating loud to me is that I think it was like we don't know what out of the blue is. Let's say I think we all kind of know, but just supposing we don't know. What is it? It's something really important because it obviously wanted you to not be a computer programmer. It
Right.
didn't want you to do that and do it
Yes.
in a big way.
Later on, as I started to, my education, my post education after high school, I was given like a test to say what kind of job would be you would be strongest at given your personal characteristics and attributes. And they said I would have made a horrible computer programmer slash engineer because they said I'm too social. I'm way too outgoing.
Well, you got to
I'm a,
use
I'm
that
a
talent,
people
right?
person. I need
Yeah.
to be with people.
That's what the universe knew ahead of time. They knew it
That's right.
already. Boy, oh boy, what a calling. That's a calling and a half. That really is loud. Like you did listen though. That's important. I think that's the major lesson to take away for this is you should listen to those events. That's what you did. Clearly, I think you did.
You know what? And it's just so profound for me because this person was not like my best friend. Me not speaking to her for 4 months mattered not to me
I got that.
when it happened. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It was just so profound that she came and apologized, and then she did that the next day. And what I was going to say earlier is what was even more profound for me is that she used a firearm. That's something that young ladies almost never use firearms when they do commit suicide.
Really.
So to me, that said that this was really final for her. And at 15, you just want to say to yourself, what could possibly be going on in somebody's life that they would determine that they didn't want to be here anymore? And as I started to go through my education, because I do have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in social work, and I'm a licensed independent social worker with supervisory designation. As I started to go through my education and get into my career, I realized a lot of people have things going on in their life. And you don't know what's going on in somebody's life. You only know what's going on in your life. So
Hmm.
therefore, what I'm hoping is that when people read my books, that not only do they learn something, but that they also see how important it is to give people forgiveness and also grace, because you don't know when you might need some forgiveness.
Right. Right. That's
Mhm.
such a heavy, 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 heavy lesson. That's a wonderful lesson.
When she apologized to you, did you hesitate at all to forgive her, or did what kind of thoughts did you have in that moment?
No, I didn't hesitate. I just, I was shocked that after all this time, she just out the clear blue, out of the blue,
Out of the
Yeah.
blue.
it just came up to me and apologized.
That's something.
But it's just that, I was just so distraught over this. I really took this really bad.
Yeah.
And it was because of the reasons that I just told you. It's like, you're looking at yourself, I was 15. She was 15. Like my life, every kid has problems. It's hard being a teenager. And then you find out there's a lot of things that sometimes are happening with young people that we don't know.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
need to really give our kids grace and help them if we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, like really listen.
Yep. Listening to those things that happen out of the blue too. That's so key to this. Hearing those messages that come from, out of the blue. We don't know where that means. I mean, I have ideas about where it means, and I'm sure everybody can have an idea about that. And we're not talking about that. But go on now. So this journey starts you off after high school. What did you do? What was your next steps?
Well, what I did was I worked. First, I went to college, but while I was in college, I always did all this kind of volunteer work with teenagers and young people. And I was somebody who went straight through school because I knew that if I took a break, I would quit. So, so I just went straight through for all of my degrees. And I just I finished my bachelor's degree. And by the time I was 23, I had my master's degree. And I went to Case Western Reserve University, Mandel School. Then I started working. And so for years, I actually did work with young people, with kids. And what I would do is find them foster homes and adoptive homes. And that was a really rewarding experience. I helped a lot of children. Have run into young people that got a home for when they were kids. And of course, they're grown now, they're adults. And I run into them and I have no idea who they are, but they never forget me. And sometimes it really, really does make my day that people have thanked me because, because I found the right home for them. They were successful in their life.
what a key part to play in their life. You know, that's huge.
And also huge when you don't even know who they are because they look so different now.
And there's so many, and you must have done it for hundreds of people.
They have to remind you, you know, who they are. And then after I did that, I actually went over to the Adams Board and I worked there for 19 years. But while I was working during the adoption and foster care, I also was in law school. So I went to law school at night. And then I just used all of my talents and skills to be a voice for people who have substance use disorders and mental health issues. And we just kind of put it under one umbrella as behavioral health. So I was the advocate. And so I would investigate abuse and neglect in our licensed facilities, and also rights violations, and also in our adult care homes.
That's a real concern sometimes. What happens there? You know.
It is. These are independently owned facilities. And basically, the people who live there need to be in a position to take care of themselves to the point that they can administer their own their medications.
Right.
But these people, they prepare their meals.
Mm-hmm.
They make sure they have a breakfast, lunch, dinner, a snack. They're supposed to watch them take their medicine. And they just are supposed to be, supportive,
Right.
Give them, support. But people are independent enough to be able to be in the community. But unfortunately, people who have these type of issues are sometimes victims, actually more often than they are the perpetrators. They're more often victims.
I believe that.
Because people know that they have these issues and they use that as a way to take advantage of it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I only have one experience with something that reminds me of this. When I was in the hospital for a stint, um, I had it was during COVID, and a lot of the nurses were sick, so they had replacements coming in, and the night shift was a bunch of replacements, and they were coming from adult care facilities, and they had no experience in where I was, and I noticed this really almost borderline abuse. I mean, I don't want to get into specifics, but I actually talked to the head nurse about it and told her they were doing this. He explained to me they were inexperienced and they were used to dealing with Alzheimer's patients. And I said, that really wasn't a reassurance to me. That made me feel like, how are they treating these Alzheimer patients? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And that's also what I mean. Like, you have people, and I've worked with that plenty of times too, with people who have dementia or some other type of memory loss disorder.
Right.
And they can be being abused and they don't remember they're
That's
being
right.
abused.
They don't even know. Yeah.
And I remember once having to investigate a home where they weren't giving them the proper staffing, the people who had memory loss issues. And one person thought the other person was his spouse and every day was forcing her into sexual relations. And basically, the next day, neither one of them would remember. It was really, and those are the kind of things where you need somebody to stand up for you.
Yeah, definitely. You need some oversight.
Absolutely. And that was part of my job, is to be that oversight. Somebody had filed a complaint and I went out and I spoke to there was like maybe one or two residents who did have some memory loss, but it wasn't to the point that they couldn't remember. And they were able to corroborate, what was happening.
So you handled some sticky situations in that
I
situation?
have. And, one of the things that I would do is I'd also would refer people so that they could receive the appropriate services. And oftentimes I would have professionals who would call me and they would whisper and they would ask for help, but they would be whispering because they were fearful.
Right.
That their peers might hear them. And if their peers knew that they had this as an issue, they were very, fearful that they would lose their employment, lose their livelihood, lose the things, and that people would actually think that they were stupid.
Oh boy.
So trying to get people who were professionals, trying to help them sometimes is really difficult because of the stigma attached to just having these type of issues and even with treatment. So, that's where my characters were born.
Your characters for your novels.
Right, for my novels, absolutely. Because when we think of substance use disorder or we think of mental health, we often think of people who are poor and marginalized. And we don't think that, that we don't understand that this is an issue that hits all of us. It has no color, it has no race, it has no religion, it has no socioeconomic status. But when you are rich and you have a mental health issue, people just say you're eccentric.
Right. Yeah. Right. 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 That's right. Yeah.
And we go, "Oh, he's just so eccentric, he's
Yeah.
just different, and that's okay. But if you are poor and you have these issues, we go, that person's crazy. Somebody needs to help them.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to intervene. And I just wanted to really explore all of those things. So that's how my characters were born.
I don't know if I have a fully formed thought, but I think what I've been um hearing is that it can be really difficult for people at all to speak and be heard. And this is like just an overarching theme in all of humanity.
I agree. It
Um,
is. And, we got to help each other. Stay on top of this. Like in my novels, what I really also wanted to explore, and I think this is for everybody, is the issues related to trauma. Trauma, unresolved trauma will show itself as mental health over time. And people don't realize that. We have things that have happened to us, and then there are things that are secrets, family secrets. It's not just your secret. Like maybe you do want to unbury yourself, but it's not just you. Other people are involved too. And you have to be really careful.
You don't want to
is
out.
that also what you would say, what you might call genetic trauma that like has passed through um,
Yes.
years and years of being born in the same family or
I, you know,
through people?
right. I think that what happens is, we have so much like, things that we're dealing with. And it's not something that just happens to people who are poor or middle class or rich. It's just the human experience. Being human is not easy.
Hmm.
You have to have phenomenally low times sometimes so you can appreciate the great times. We have high highs and low lows in life.
But do we have enough support um or even education around when we get to our low times?
We don't, but we're doing better.
Hmm.
What's happening now, particularly after COVID, is people are starting to acknowledge and understand mental health more. They're starting to say, hey, they're going to be honest. We're being more honest than we used to be. But even in some communities, that's still something people are still afraid to do. So one of the reasons why, I wanted to make my characters are African American is because in African American communities, not all, not everybody, when we talk about this, it doesn't mean this is everybody, but some people really believe strongly, it's already hard enough having, an issue, just being African American and people being racist to you and people being rude to you and disrespectful. Why would I want to add something else? So now you want me to have all those things and you want me to have that label too? And that's very difficult. And we'll say, look, you survived so many other things. You should be able to survive this. And it's just really bad advice.
That's terrible advice.
Right. What we should do is if we understand how important our minds and our mental well-being is to the rest of our health. If I'm so stressed out and I'm not dealing with that, I will also start to have physical problems. I have high blood pressure. I'll have, other issues that can put me at risk. So what we need to do is to, first off, not be so judgmental to each other and create safe spaces where people feel like they can be able to be honest and say what's going on. And also, when they're honest, we support them.
It's all about love, really, when it comes right down to it.
What makes an environment conducive for people to be honest with each other?
I think we need to encourage each other that we are going to listen to them. And we need to also remember there's certain things that when we get upset with each other that we don't do to each other. If I'm talking to you and I tell you something about me don't get mad at me and then throw it up and use it as a weapon against me. Because if you do, that's not going to make me want to come tell you things about what's going on with me. We have to learn how to have disagreements better. Like nobody, if you get along with somebody all the time, it's probably something wrong with you. That's just not even human.
Yeah, that's kind of close.
Okay.
That would be called what I would call a people pleaser. You
Right.
know,
Right. You
you
know
know,
what? There's
mhm.
conflict is not necessarily something that's bad. We have to remember that.
Right, right.
Sometimes, out of conflict, you know, we grow. We need that so that we can grow. If you're the same person at 60 that you were at 20, shame on you.
I get that.
Okay, that
Yeah,
means you haven't grown. We all
no,
should be evolving and growing, becoming better, becoming more understanding. That's what happens as you get older. The things that bothered you at 20 don't bother you at 60
right.
because
You're
you've
getting,
transcended
yeah,
that.
you've transcended those little things. They seem
That's
much,
right.
they go smaller in your perspective.
What if you're a person who is really afraid of conflict and you have thought about how in your childhood there was a lot of volatility around you. So you just kind of move through life like really being afraid of conflict, even though you know it will help resolve things, but you don't necessarily associate it with safety. You associate it with danger. Like how can someone who's afraid of conflict create more safety around entering into that?
I think that the best thing to do is to work with someone, get yourself a therapist who will help you do exercises to help you start to gain some of that strength that you need. I'm going to tell you what I do see also. I see people who grow up or to get older and they never confronted whatever it was that upset them. And then the person who was the source of anger passes away or something before they have an opportunity to confront that. And sometimes they have issues, real serious issues. What we always got to remember is tomorrow's not promised to any of us. So we should be trying to live every day like it could be our last. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely feel that.
And, understand that, there could be things that you're upset about when you were a kid you don't understand.
Yeah.
It might be things that people did that you saw as a problem that when you got the full story, you might see as a blessing.
Hmm.
Right.
But some things you can't tell kids. I got grown kids. All my kids are grown. And now that they're older, things that I like when they were younger, their perception of perhaps of me. Let's just use me. Let's use me as an example, Jackie.
Yeah.
Like maybe when they were younger, they thought I was mean or I was stern and now that they're older, they now have a full understanding because things that I couldn't tell them when they were young, I can now tell them as adults. And now they have an understanding and go, oh my God, you weren't actually mean. Like you should have did that. Like this is important. You should have, but they don't know that because they were kids and there are certain things you can't tell a kid.
Right.
Hmm.
It's not appropriate.
No,
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that's great advice for every parental-children relationship, really, because I definitely myself have learned evolving in our relationships with Jackie and my other children. Definitely, this is what happens. You unearth things that happened years ago, and you can now explain them better, why that was so. And they have now more perspective as human beings, and that's wisdom. I was thinking about, it kept popping in my brain, so I'm going to say it. I don't know if it's not off. I know the story the story of how a pearl is made. It's a pretty remarkable story how
Oh yeah, pearl, right. The
an oyster,
pressure.
an oyster gets a piece of substance or a grain of sand that
Yeah,
irritates them. It irritates them. It pisses them off.
right.
It angers them. And so what do? They form this this beautiful shell around it, which is basically the same thing the shell is made of, oyster shell, right? And then it comes out as a pearl. It doesn't bother them anymore. And we use them as things of beauty.
That's
We
right.
make chains of them. So, I mean, I always think of that as like a good analogy for stuff we go through. And if,
Absolutely.
if we get this thing that irritates us, chances are we need to learn from it.
Absolutely. So I'm hoping people will pick up my story. I really wanted to shed light on mental health, but then in my second and third books, I wanted to add some new themes
Well, tell us about
besides
your
this.
books. Let's hear about the books.
Yeah, so my first book is called The Anniversary. I'm gonna put that
Show it.
here.
Show it.
Beautiful cover.
Yes, as you can see, Jackie, maybe you can't because I don't think you can see this one in front of me, right under me. But these are behind me are the pieces of art that my covers are made from. See, this is the commemorations. You can see that one behind
I've
me.
been admiring them. Yeah.
Yeah, this is my second book cover. And then my last book is called The Revelation. And it's a series. And it follows a family here in Ohio where I live. And basically one of them, they're both professionals and they have a really nice life. But one of them uncovers information about his past that basically causes him to have basically a breakdown and everything that happens because of it. And it deals with so many different topics. And
So let's talk about like the evolution. This stuff. What prompted that first book?
The first book actually was a short story. And I gave it to a professional writer who read it and liked it so much, he told me I should develop it into a novel.
What made you write that story?
I just wanted to basically, like I said, I saw this commonality of so many professionals calling me, whispering, afraid that if people knew what was going on, that basically, they would be ostracized by their community, by the people they work with. They would lose everything. And that does happen. And some people really do need help. Some people need help. And you know what? And I'm just going to speak plainly. And sometimes people don't like what I say. I keep it like really honest though. We do have duties to our family members and friends. I don't know your family. I know my family. I remember I worked with the young man and he said, his family called me. He was the only boy in the family. And the people weren't from Ohio. They were from another city, but they moved to Ohio. And for whatever reason, this man's childhood home had just really significance for him. So they realized that he was suffering with the mental health issue. They did get him, treated, but he didn't want to take the medicine. So what they would do is they would bribe him. And they would tell him if he took the medicine, they would give him so much money every day. But so, that's what they did. But basically, he really wasn't taking the medicine. He was just tricking them into believing that he was. And then he had money. And so, long story short, he went to the city that he came from and went to the house that he used to reside in and broke in, basically. And these people came home, and he's lucky because, there are people who will kill you if they come home and you are in their house.
And it's
Yeah.
legal.
It
Self-defense.
sure is.
Yeah.
It sure is because that's their castle, that's their dwelling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but luckily these people were able to get this young man, they got him out, they got him help. But the family was like, when they take him to the hospital, he's so convincing. And he would say to the doctors, my family, they're exaggerating. I didn't do these things. And, the doctor doesn't know them. They don't know what his baseline behavior is. They just don't know.
I don't know that.
So I suggested to the family that they videotape him when he's in this state. And, he would tell them he was Jesus. So they brought him to me to talk with him. And he said, Miss Winston, they're just exaggerating. This isn't true. I never said I was Jesus. And they pulled out the tape and they played it. Where he clearly said he was Jesus. I said, that is you, is it not? You did just say you were Jesus.
And what was his response?
He dropped his head, which means that something's wrong. Sometimes, you have to understand that it is difficult for all of us. That's what made me write this book. It's difficult to tell people that you're different. Nobody wants to be different. You want to be like everybody else, and particularly when you're young.
And that's your first book,
It's called The Anniversary.
The Anniversary.
Right. And I named it that because people don't realize that there are anniversaries that are not always good. Let's use an example 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
9/11 is a day that's the anniversary of the bombing of our Twin Towers, or,
Right.
you know, the taking down of our Twin Towers.
A horrible day.
Right. It sure was a horrible day. It is actually my brother-in-law's birthday. And up until that day, it was just my brother-in-law's birthday. But then after that day, it became 9/11.
Right.
And it was an anniversary. And I want people to understand that all anniversaries are not good. And everybody has anniversaries they're dealing with that actually mark something bad that happened. The death of a loved one. You know, there's certain things that have happened that it's just, you know, that day means something to you. It doesn't mean anything to anybody else,
Right.
but it means something to you,
It's a
which is
powerful
another
thing.
reason.
So it's a
Right.
powerful, maybe it's a catalyst, a powerful mover into your mind and your soul.
That's right. And you know what? You don't know if the people around you are experiencing one of those anniversaries. So give people grace.
Right. Give them some space. Right. Give them some space.
You don't know what's going on with people. They don't just come out and be like, hey, today's an awful day. Did you know that 5 years ago today, this happened? Like, people just don't do that.
No.
But they may not be in a good mood. They may not be themselves. And I'm just saying that, you know, I just want us to start giving each other grace.
Grace.
And in my second book, The Revelation, I wanted to introduce some other things besides the mental health. And one of them is sickle cell disease. And I just want people to know that my daughter actually lives with sickle cell disease. When I was 8, my dad passed away from it. I also lost 2 aunts and an uncle to sickle cell disease. And I also have, in addition to my daughter, I have a niece, a great nephew, and a great niece, all living with sickle cell disease. And a lot of people don't know a lot about it. And I wanted to use my novel as a way to basically help to raise awareness about it so people understand it more, and just so your audience understands what it is.
I think that's great.
It is a defect in my daughter's red blood cells.
Right.
And instead of being circular and soft, they're shaped like a farm sickle.
Right.
Abnormally shaped, and they go through her veins and her arteries, and it causes immense pain. My daughter looks the picture of health, but sometimes she's very ill. And so I could see the parallels between mental health and sickle cell disease, and I wanted to include it because people with mental health disease or defects or issues, oftentimes you won't know there's anything wrong with them until something's wrong with them. They're fine until they're not. And that's the same thing with my daughter and her illness. And then lastly, I wanted to interject and put human trafficking in my novels.
Is that in Revelation?
That's in the Commemoration and Revelation. And the Revelation is all 3 themes. But
okay.
what I did is, the first one is more focused on mental health, but the second one is mental health, sickle cell, and human trafficking. And the third one is mental health, sickle cell, and human trafficking. Why I wanted to include human trafficking is because in my state where I live, human trafficking is big. It's like number 4th in the nation. And people often think about human trafficking. They often think about sex. And I want people to know that human trafficking is not just sexual. We have a lot of people who are forced into labor, and they are forced to work pretty much for nothing. And that's human trafficking too. It's basically slavery. So I want people to understand that.
Well, I think people would understand that indentured servitude almost. That's kind of what it is. And then I think what examples of it did you encounter? Any of those people?
Oh, yes.
With that?
I did. I had people who were brought to this country who don't know how to speak English. They're dependent on a relative or family member or somebody from where they're from. And we have to remember that there are in other countries, there are people they're afraid of the police. Their police are not our police.
Right, right.
We have to remember that there are places where the police are corrupt. And so therefore the people are fleeing that country because of the corruptness, but then they're very afraid. But I remember I had a client that had to make Chinese food like 18 hours a day. I also once worked with someone who basically didn't have enough money to reside in her group home or adult care facility. So basically, the owner used her as a slave, would make her do all this work. I mean, just outrageous work.
Oh, wow.
And that's illegal.
Of course
And we
it is.
want people to know about it. So I've just been trying to use my novels as a vehicle to raise awareness about a lot of different subjects and to also talk about the strength of family and again forgiveness. And in my novel, my main characters lose a child and also dealing with grief. A lot of people are dealing with grief, unresolved grief, and that can also manifest into a mental health issue if it's untreated.
And physical health eventually. Yeah.
Absolutely. People
Oh,
get sick because they're dealing with just crushing grief.
yep.
And there are places that can help you. Like I know I have somebody that I know that lost their child. I know lots of people, but I know somebody who lost a child due to a drug overdose.
Oh, boy.
And she was telling me she went to a support group with other parents who also lost their children from a drug overdose. And that really helped her.
Absolutely. I can see that being so powerful. I can see this journey of yours is kind of magnificent, really, as it unfolded into your journey, bringing you to do an action. Your life was in actual rubber hitting the ground. You were actually boots down the ground. You were helping people with your skills, and that
I
wonderful
tried.
skill of being able to talk to people. That's
Yes,
amazing. And then you take that to even further. Now you're developing it into becoming, having a voice in the novelist world to
I'm trying.
put out entertainment, but it's educational. It's,
Absolutely.
which I don't think anybody who is a good reader, most people who read, don't just read for entertainment. They want to hear something to learn at the end. By the end of the story, I mean, even if you look at Shakespeare, there's a moral lesson in every play.
Absolutely.
So there's something to be taught. So when you're teaching through your entertainment, I think that's a very unbelievably high, noble calling. It's not,
Thank you.
you have to have a real passion for helping to be able to sit down at that typewriter or computer these days and put that stuff onto, you know, make it real, make it something to read. There's a lot, and we know that writing is rewriting, so you spend a lot of time rewriting,
I sure did. I have really serious editors who don't play around and they really were on me. But believe it or not, just a fun tidbit of information. I actually wrote all three of my novels on a Samsung Galaxy
That's
tablet
amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
because believe it or not, just I cannot stand being behind the computer for too long. I do it all day.
I actually end up writing on my phone more now these days. It's crazy.
Yes. And see that for me, the phone is too small.
It gets small. It gets a little aggravating,
Mhm.
especially with my fat fingers. I have very
Right.
fat fingers. I,
Um,
Absolutely.
I'm a bass player. My fingers are strong and meaty, manly
Oh yeah, I
fingers.
love the bass. I love music. And so, Jackie, you're a musician as well?
yeah, yeah,
And
I
what
get
do
it
you
from my dad.
play?
I play guitar and sing.
Oh, wonderful. Girl, they would never let me sing. You know that, right? You hear my voice, right? I'm serious. They never let me sing. What would happen is, you know, we be singing, like for the choir, and then everybody say stop. And then they walk up to me and they go, sing. And then I sing, and then they go, okay, stop. And then they go, you know what? You have a really loud voice. You should be the MC. I was always the MC. And that when I was a kid. And that just prepared me for what I do now.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
great.
And I would say like channel. You're definitely channeling your ideas through. your voice
But
in.
they never say you can sing. My daughter, she's not like, of course, Bobby as good as the two of you, but she's musical, and she used to play the baritone in the
Ooh.
marching band.
I played the baritone. I love that
Okay,
instrument.
and she loves that. She got like the big award from band and all that when she was young. But I love music. I love music. I love all kind of music. And I'd be, singing with the music, and she says I sound like a dying whale. I
Oh
asked her, how does a
no.
dying whale sound? She goes, like you, mom. Awful.
Oh boy.
Oh. You should
Okay.
still keep singing though.
And I do, because you know what I tell her? I don't sing for her. I sing for me.
Yes.
Sometimes you do things because you like to do it, not because what other people think. And that's what I hope your audience gets from that. Is that, do things for yourself. If other people don't like it, too bad. And don't let people tell you you can't do it. If I hadn't believed in myself, I wouldn't have wrote 3 novels. I
Right.
used to tell people I'm writing a novel, and they would laugh because they didn't believe me. Because I can sometimes, I'm always making jokes and I'm funny and stuff, that they don't realize that, I got a serious side too. And then when my novels were done, they go, oh my God, you were for real.
Yeah. Well, I think it's powerful, inspiring. It's like it's to me, I'm telling you right now, I feel like the bell ringing. And why I say that is because bells are one of the most wonderful sound machines on the earth. They think of how long they've existed, right? Bells are around for a long time. And when I hear a bell, and I've used it in music sometimes, but it's always to express some joy. Like at the end of the song, and you ring a bell, like a real sound of a bell.
I
And
love
when I hear
it.
a bell, it resonates my whole body. I can feel it right down to my toes. And I think that what I love about bells, it reminds me, first of all, joy, but also
Okay.
it's truth. Like when something is true, it rings like a bell,
Oh, wow.
you know?
That's true.
And
And the church
uh,
bells, because I hear
you,
church bells all the time around where
right.
I live at. I love them.
And think about it, right? What's the guy? The hunchback was always ringing the bell, right?
Right.
Well, he got the girl.
In the end, he did.
So there's something to that bell. But what I love about this is, oh, JJ, you're like a bell, and you're ringing it,
Thank you.
and it's
I
very
appreciate
true,
you.
authentic, beautiful stuff. And I can't wait to share this with our audience. And of course, we're going to include links to get so people can get your books.
I hope so.
We've had a few novelists on writers before, and I know that for a fact that people have used them for book clubs.
I hope they use my books for a book club, but they've been I'm hoping that people will go and check me out, look at my Goodreads reviews. I got lots of them. My books are resonating with people. I'm just trying to make sure that my messages get out there, because I feel like this is my legacy. When you go, you still have some words here that express what I believe. It's fiction, but I tell people this: fiction is really mirrors life, really.
Oh, of
Oh,
course,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. Like parables.
You tell real truth with fiction.
Absolutely. And we can also, I want people to be educated, but also entertained. Nobody wants to read. I'm gonna tell you, I've taught. Nobody wants to be lectured. People want to, get the information, and also, get a good story too. So that's what I try to do for people.
A good story allows people to just be in each other's shoes and see from different perspectives,
That's right.
you know?
That's a good
And
one. I
people
love that.
say that they always tell me, I get a lot of feedback about my novel. I just do want to say this: it is heavy
Yeah.
Oh,
until it's not. Like, this is what people need to understand. You don't know what people are going through. They don't usually come and share. If you say to somebody, how are you? And they go, let me tell you, my leg hurts, my head hurts, this hurts, that, people run from you. They
yeah,
go, you know
they
what?
tune right out. They don't want to hear
No,
it.
you know what they go, I asked you how you were out of courtesy. I really didn't want you to tell me all that.
No, right. They just want to hear fine, fine, thank you, and you. That's
That's
pretty much,
right.
they don't really want the answer to that.
We teach our kids, when somebody says, how are you? The appropriate response is fine. You?
Right, that's it.
I've kind of made such like an experiment out of that question and answer system where I started actually answering it.
And what happened, Jackie?
How many
Tell me.
friends did you lose?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have bewildered some people by actually answering.
Do they listen?
Sometimes, yes. Most of
And
the
then
time.
other times, what do they do?
Other times they they look for like a way to continue a more positive type of conversation. And so I kind of turn it into a joke usually,
Okay.
to save it.
Right.
This has been a great podcast with you, definitely today, JJ. I mean, I can honestly say it's one of the best ones we've had, and I really love it. I don't really compare them. I shouldn't say that, but can't help it. It really was invigorating and inspiring, and I feel like a lot of that bell ringing. I really feel the bells now, really loud and clear.
Thank you so much, Vernon. It was a pleasure and an honor to be on your show. And Jackie, it was wonderful meeting you.
Great
Thank
to
you
Thank,
guys for having me.
thank you so much for joining us, JJ. And I'm going to get your book. So
You know what? You just go to my website, and I'm just going to say that so your people will know. They can just go to www.novelistjjwinston.com. Everything for me is Novelist JJ Winston. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, pretty much all the different social medias. Am I good at it? No, because I'm old. But
It is.
who cares?
Yeah.
Now that we've got some people listening, go to those places. Look up novelist JJ Winston. There'll be a link at the end of the episode, but now from hearing it verbally. So go ahead, if you're in your car, write it down while you're driving. No, don't do that. But I'm sure you can download the episode and hear it back later. So thank you so much for joining us, JJ. It's been a real pleasure. And I loved meeting you. And thanks so much for sharing your wonderful story with us. It's been like a bell ringing.
Thank you.
Out of the Blue, the podcast, hosted by me, Vernon West, co-hosted by Jacqueline West, edited by Joe Gallo, music and logo by Vernon West III. Have an Out of the Blue story of your own you'd like to share? Reach us at info@outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. Subscribe to Out of the Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and on our website, outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. You can also check us out on Patreon for exclusive content.